Those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben. I'm part-time mountain safety advisor for Mountaineering Scotland, and I work alongside Heather Morning, who I'm sure many of you will know from her fame throughout being in Mountaineering Scotland for many years. So tonight's talk is kind of either a bit of a refresher for some folk or new information to those people who are maybe starting their journey into getting into the outdoors and wanting to venture further afield into the mountains, and maybe starting to look at getting their Munros ticked or their Corbetts, whatever it is that you want to do. The information tonight will be relevant for all your ventures into the mountains. My computer seems to have stopped. There we go. So who are Mountaineering Scotland? We are a non-for-profit organisation that helps to campaign for members on lots of things such as access and other mountain-related issues that we will then sort of campaign for. We also run safety and skills courses for members and non-members who want to then look to develop skills that they have, or refresh skills, or have an opportunity to experience something new, like heading out into the winter for the first time, or maybe scrambling and just developing that little bit of independence in more technical terrain. We also help advertise for clubs. So if you're new to hill walking and you want to find a hill buddy or someone to go out with, you can go onto our website and find many clubs that are spread throughout Scotland that you can become a member of. And it's a great way to meet new people and just have a friend or friends to head out into the hill and sort of feel that little bit safer in groups as well if you do head out. So check it out, it's really worthwhile. And if you're not a member, it's worth considering joining. Because you get a good gift once you join up, and you get sort of good discount on shops as well when you go to buy new bits and pieces for heading out into the hills. So it's something worth looking into. So why do we go into the mountains? Well, we want to go and explore. We're human beings are naturally inquisitive, and we just want to see, what's around the corner, what's over that hill. And we want to be able to have opportunities to explore and be able to be rewarded with views like this on a really clear sunny day, or even just venture to some more technical ground like Skye. This is Sgurr Alistair on Skye. And just again, have that chance to explore or head somewhere that you've never been before, maybe like Torden onto the triple buttresses of Ben A. Whatever it is, we want to go explore and be able to have days that are as beautiful and sunny as this. Some days when you go out, you can feel so remote and you just feel like you're by yourself in some far-flung corner of Scotland. Other days, it can feel very overcrowded and lots of people queuing just to get their photograph on the summit of Ben Nevis. But you can see here it's a beautiful sunny day, so why not go out and have an adventure? It's rare to have beautiful days like this, but when they do come, they're worth it. Most of the time, this is how Scotland is: wet and miserable, bit dreek. And it can even be that the mist and the fog can really set in around you and kind of make you feel a bit disorientated and feel a bit lost. And that's where you need to have those skills and confidence to be able to navigate your way safely off the mountains. So that's what tonight's all about, is about kind of looking at sort of how we can prepare and plan and have those skills to stay safe in the mountain. But first I want to take you on holiday, or I want you to sort of think about the last time you went on holiday. Did you just decide to get off your chair or leave your house and just go to an airport, jump on a plane and go to some country that's completely unknown and take no money with you? You didn't know anything about the country, its language, the currency, where to stay, You know, when was the last time you did that? Probably never. Most of the time, whenever you go off on a holiday, you spend the time at home trolling through the internet, researching where you want to go, when's the best time you want to go to that country. You know, you want to go when the best weather is. You want to look for a nice hotel. You want to make sure you've got the right currency, the right money. You want to know more about the country, what the language is. So you put a lot of time and effort into planning your holiday because you want to get the best possible experience and also to be able to return home alive and in one piece. So if we do that for our holidays, why do we not do that as much for a day out in the mountains? So first I want to think a little bit about the winter environment. And if you've ever been out in the winter, you may have come across this very useful resource, Be Avalanche Aware, which is a fantastic resource to help you plan a day out in the mountains in the winter. And it's about a decision-making process and a bit of a checklist for you to make sure you're doing everything right before you head out onto the hill to help mitigate and reduce your chances of risk and exposure to avalanche. And it has 3 stages. It has a planning stage, and then it has the journey that you do, and then it has key places. And key places refers to anywhere in your journey that you need to make a decision about the next step in your journey. And at each of these stages, you have 3 factors to consider. You have the snow and avalanche conditions, you have you and your party, and the skills that you have and the experience that you have, and then the landscape that you want to visit. But if we remove the snow and avalanche conditions and just change that for weather conditions, we can use the same process and same planning tool for the summer. So if we take those snowflakes away and replace them with the weather, we can use the same process and just call it Be Adventure Aware rather than Be Avalanche Aware, because there's no avalanches in the summertime. So that's what we're going to use this evening. We're going to look through this process and how we can use it to plan an effective and safe day in the mountains. So we're going to first look at this planning stage, and we're going to look at these 3 elements along the way. So look at the weather and mountain conditions, the skills that we have as the individuals or the group that we head out with, and the landscape that we want to visit. But I'm going to use this in a bit of a context based on a day in the mountains that myself and my wife had. And I planned the day, but it didn't go according to plan as I would have liked. And I want to share that experience with you about how I planned the day and kind of the mistakes I made along the way that led to us changing the plan. And hopefully you can learn from that little story that I'm about to tell about the mistakes that I made on this journey. Not that it was dangerous, it's just highlighting the importance of planning. So our grand day out, so this is my dog, by the way, not my wife. This is us heading out on our adventure. So first we want to look at where we wanted to go and where do we get that information from. So in our planning stage, we thought, right, well, we have lots of resources. We've got lots of maps, lots of guidebooks, really great online resource, Walk Highlands as well. It's a really useful thing to use more often now. But on the day that we went out, I just decided to use the good old-fashioned Munro's guidebook. Okay, so that's all I used for planning our day out. So we wanted to go and do some Munro's that we hadn't done before. And if you've ever been here, good on you. So we went up to the area of Ben Gibson, just a little bit more northwest of Ben Wyvis. And we wanted to go and do 3 Munro's around there. And we kind of had a look at the distance and how long it would take. And that's our route there that I had planned. I thought, okay, that's about 20 kilometers. That seems fair. I think we can do that okay in a day. That's absolutely fine. So now that we had the plan and now that we knew where we wanted to go, we needed to look as to when is the best time to go. And that's based on the forecast. And there's lots of little forecasts out there that we can use. And it's always good to use a mountain-specific forecast because it's going to give you the details that you need for higher elevations, not just at sea level, because we need to think differently about how the weather affects us higher up in the mountains. So great use of forecasts. Like Met Office have done a really good job at developing really good mountain-specific forecasts that break down the common mountain areas within the UK and Scotland. And if you like facts and figures, if you like lots of detail, they're really good at giving you the detail, and they're very good at giving the detail at glen level, and also what it can be like up high, so around 900 meters, where the height of Munros kind of are, and you can see there's quite a big difference between the wind speeds from glen level to higher up. So that helps to plan your day a bit more, thinking about do you want to have the wind in your back? What direction do you want to do your journey? How is that going to affect your journey? They also give you temperature as well, because that can be a big factor in what you carry and what you wear. And again, at glen level, it can seem pretty mild, 6 degrees, not too bad. Once you get up to 900 meters, that's a big difference. It's almost freezing. And then when you get the wind speeds on top of that, what it's going to feel like is going to be even colder. So spending the time planning your day, looking at the forecast for the altitude that you're going to be at, should hopefully get you thinking more about what you need to pack and how you're going to plan your journey to sort of stay comfortable throughout the day. Mountain Weather Information Service is very good at doing the same thing. It'll give you how that weather will feel on you at around 900 meters as well. So they'll give specific detail on how the wind will affect you and how it will impede your journey if it does, if it's quite strong winds. Also, it gives you detail on the cloud cover. If the cloud level is going to be at 700 or 800 meters and you're going up to 900, you're going into the cloud and into poor visibility. And that hopefully will maybe help you think, do you have the necessary skills to navigate comfortably in poor visibility? So it might make you think, I might want to stay lower at lower elevations and enjoy a nice forest walk today. So again, really spending that time looking at the detail will help plan your day better. Another useful little tool to see what's happening throughout the coming days leading up to the day that you want to go out is the Mountain Weather Information Service kind of forecasts channel. They'll give a little glimpse of what's happening in the coming days. So if you look at this, this is the forecast that we had for the day that we decided to go up onto the 3 Munros on Ben Gibson. So the things I was looking at in this forecast was the wind, because it's the one thing that will really make or break your day. In this forecast, it's saying that it's 20 to 25, perhaps 30 miles an hour in the morning, and then starting to ease off throughout the day down to a very manageable 10 to 15. So I was thinking that's good. We're expecting the winds to ease off, to be easier walking. But how windy is windy? If you don't know what 30-mile-an-hour winds are like, it's really hard to sort of get a feel for just words if you've never experienced physically what 30 miles an hour wind is like. So to give you an idea, if you look at this synoptic chart, there's a very rough guide. Isobars are kind of like contours, they mark areas of equal pressure, just like contours mark areas of equal height. The more isobars there are covering the country, the windier it's going to be. So that's going to be a very windy day looking at this picture. And just to give you an idea of how windy can be, so that's actually Heather out for a walk one day, and you can see that she's being blown around. You know, can you imagine trying to fight your way continually through winds like that, trying to do 3 Munros or 4 Munros or even 1 Munro? You know, it's going to be torture. It might make you think twice about planning a day out in wind speeds that in this video, the winds are probably 50, gusting 60. At a guess in that video, so they're pretty full on. So this is the synoptic chart for our journey, and you can see, looking at the red arrow, there's not very many isobars crossing the country, so that kind of ties in with the wind speeds that we're expecting to be pretty calm throughout the day. So we thought we can manage that, you know, with those winds dying off. They're not going to really impede our day at all. So the other thing I'm looking at is the rain. Is it going to be prolonged rain that just might make you feel a little bit, you know, down in the dumps because it's not a nice day and you can't see? So it's saying here that the rain will fizzle out in the afternoon, so it's kind of improving as the day goes on. So again, I was thinking, oh, the wind is going to calm down, the rain is going to ease off, and we could be in for a nice day. So that's what I had in my mind for the forecast. So I was expecting the day to be quite a nice one later on. Something to think about with rain, it can be a big issue if you're planning a day where you know you're going into somewhere maybe a bit more remote, or there's lots of potential rivers to cross. And it's always a good idea to look at the days prior to you going, because if there's been a lot of rain building up to your walk or during your walk, depending on where you are, rivers can fill up pretty quickly. So you might think that when you get out to where you're going, that a river might be quite passable and crossable, but with the lag time of rain that filters down from higher mountains into lower levels where you're potentially going to be, those rivers could become completely uncrossable. So this picture here of Heather crossing this river, within a space of 24 hours, that river there, same river, same location, became completely uncrossable. You know, so just bear that in mind about the lag time of water and rain and how that can affect where you are and the rivers that you potentially might be crossing. You know, so if you're planning a walk where there's lots of rivers, maybe look at where there might be suitable bridges, or plan a day where there's less rain and they're not going to hinder where you're walking. So anyway, back to our journey. So in the planning stage, we've looked at where we wanted to go. We've looked at the weather forecast for where we're going. And now we're looking at the experienced party. So this is the second part, you know, what skills do we have as the experienced party? So my wife and I were, you know, we think we're quite young and we're quite fit and capable of doing quite a big adventurous day. And I think, you know, that I'm suitable enough to be able to navigate based on the qualifications that I have to navigate in those poor visibility days. So we thought, yep, we feel confident that we can be in somewhere quite remote. But it's always good to ask yourself questions in your planning whenever you're thinking about your skills. That, can you navigate with a map and compass? Do you have the appropriate clothing and equipment to look after yourself? Do you have the experience to be there? You know, have you been to other remote areas that you feel comfortable to be there for a long period of time? And are you fit and capable enough to do a big day like that? So it's really important to continually ask yourself questions about, you know, why it is that you want to do what you're doing and where you're going. Once you've decided all that, you need to think about how you're going to prepare yourself with the clothes that you wear. And a good place to start is the base layers, things that are next to your skin that are going to dry quickly and keep you warm and comfortable. And then you can add another layer onto that. So a mid layer of some sort, it could be a soft shell, a fleece, something synthetic, and some other trousers that are going to keep you comfortable. And then when it turns really bad, if it gets really windy or really heavy rain, and you just want to keep that, those elements off you, you can then wear your outer layers, whether it's Gore-Tex or something else to the equivalent. Something to bear in mind about the layers that you do wear: synthetic fabrics are much better at keeping you cooler and warmer and drier if they do get wet, because they dry out quicker. Cotton is just like a big sponge that if you get sweaty or if it gets wet, it doesn't dry out and it just retains that cold. And if you're still cold, you start to shiver, and then you can start to get that onset of potential hypothermic issues. So if you're heading into the hills, avoid cotton. Synthetic fabrics are much better to wear as well. And further on to that, think about the colors that you wear and the colors that you buy. It's always better to have bright colors to be seen. Darker colors make you harder to find if you need to be found. Plus, you look cool as well wearing bright colors. Footwear. It's entirely up to you what you wear in your feet based on the conditions and the terrain that you're going to. I would have no problems wearing trainers or approach shoes of some kind if I know that I'm going somewhere where it's dry, it's good tracks and gravelly paths, something like the Cairngorms on a nice day. However, if I was to venture somewhere to the northwest or west coast where it might be more heathery and boggy and wet, I might want to consider having something that's more protective in terms of being waterproof, high ankle support as well, just to kind of keep the grass and heather out of my shoes and socks. So wear what's suitable for the terrain and the conditions. Yeah, so that was me on a day out that I got very wet and muddy, unfortunately. So make sure it's appropriate for where you're going. The equipment that you carry in your bag and what you carry. So you could say that this is a very minimalist, very lightweight pack for a day, and would probably work very well for a nice, dry, calm day, depending on where you are as well. You don't want to have to carry too much stuff and sweat loads. So just carrying the right amount of kit for the day that you're going. Again, if conditions are maybe a little bit colder or you're going for a little bit further journey, again, maybe carrying something that's going to keep you a little bit warmer, or a kind of bigger bag to carry that little bit of extra kit. And then something like this, you could question, oh, is that too heavy? Well, I'd say no, it's not too heavy, because you want to carry what's appropriate for the conditions and the terrain that you visit. There's no point in carrying something very minimalist and very lightweight that you can pretty much see through if you know the conditions are going to be very cold, very wet. So you want to make sure you're carrying warmer clothes, maybe that are slightly heavier and better waterproofs to keep out that rain. So take what's appropriate for the conditions. And again, you can do all this in the planning stage, in the comfort of your home, looking at what's appropriate for the conditions. Sometimes you can end up carrying too much if you're not careful enough, because we all want to carry everything, those luxury items as well. So again, take what's appropriate. If you notice in all three of these kind of bags and what's being carried, there are certain items that are always a constant. They're always in every bag, and that's a map and compass, some sort of shelter, and some sort of first aid kit as well. And those things, I think, are the kind of the key things that should always be in a bag, because they're your little kind of emergency bits and pieces, and like an insurance policy. And even even on a windy day, if you're on the Cairngorm Plateau and you have no shelter, a little group shelter is great to just get into and have your sandwiches and just sort of enjoy somebody's company and keep out of the wind. Other things which are becoming more of a constant is our phones. We carry them every day, and they're great navigational apps that we can get a hold of for free that just help us to use as a navigational tool alongside the map and compass. So I think that's something that should be becoming more of a constant when we're out in the hills. I don't think we should be relying on them solely 100% without a map and compass, but certainly a phone and a map and compass should be complementing each other nowadays in the mountains. If the technology's there, why not use it? But something to bear in mind about your technology and your compasses. If you notice these two compasses, the same compass, but the needles that point north are actually facing two different directions. So one's okay, the other one is actually broken, because what has happened is that chances are a big magnet, such as the phone that you carry, or potentially the smartwatch that you have, has caused the needle to actually alter its polarity. So it's not pointing to north anymore, it's pointing somewhere else. So if you have your compass and your phone together in the same pocket, chances are you're going to damage your compass. So just make sure that whatever you do, however you carry them, they're in two separate pockets. So your phone is in your backpack away from your compass. And in terms of carrying your map and compass whenever you're out in the hill, you want to have access to it that's quick and handy. So having somewhere that's easy to get to in a pocket in your jacket, and it's maybe wrapped up nice and neatly to the area that you're going to be in some sort of waterproof map case. And again, your compass is separate from your GPS or your phone, whatever that might be. Just make sure whenever you do go out and you have it ready, that you don't look like this, that you don't have it wrapped around your neck. On a windy day, it's just going to be like a helicopter blades just eventually whirring into your neck. So make sure it's tucked away, nice and neat, but easy accessible. So on to our journey. So we've now done all the planning. We've looked at where we want to go, when we want to go, what we're going to take with us based on the forecast and the journey that we're doing. We're now going on to our journey. And again, whilst we're doing that, we're looking at these three individual elements. So this is us heading out on our journey. There's Ben Jerry off in the distance. And it started off as a nice day. You can see the weather looks reasonable. It's not too bad. So this photograph there's the car park in the red circle there. And this photograph is taken roughly there where that arrow is, and that little lock just off to the right. And this was about 11 o'clock. Now, this was my first mistake that I made in our planning. Instead of starting earlier in our day, we left quite late. We thought we'll have a leisurely morning, drive up, and then we'll start the day. So this was our first mistake. We left late and arrived at this destination quite late on in the day. So you can see here in this next picture, the weather has slightly changed. It's maybe not looking so bright. There's a bit more cloud lower into the valley. And you can see that red line is marking the route that we need to take to get to the summit. So this photograph is taken roughly where that green arrow marks on the OS map. And this was 12:30. So we haven't really traveled that far from the previous picture, and it's taken us an hour and a half to get here. So we're moving probably quite slow, probably slower than we had anticipated and slower than we had expected. If anybody's ever been to this area, the great thing about the Gaelic language is it's a very descriptive language. And it certainly is a heathery place. My mistake of poor planning was not looking at the map in a little bit more detail and seeing the lack of tracks and trails that we could follow up through to get to the summit of this Munro. So again, that was probably my second mistake of not spending that little bit of extra time planning. And because I only used one source of information, which was the Munro guidebook, I probably could have used something more up to date and more modern, like Walk Highlands, which is a really useful online resource, which has hundreds of walks in it, from low level to big mountain walks. But also what they do is they have blogs that people write up their day and their experiences of being out in particular places. And it allows you to gather more information firsthand about what somebody else had an experience of this area. Again, it gives you a bit more insight. And I wish in hindsight I had done that, because some of these blog posts regarding the heathery place, should have given me a good indication as to what to expect. Like, for example, someone has written up wet, 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 an uneventful trudge, bin bags and wellies. And that sort of speaks volumes, like, well, maybe I should have spent more time planning and being prepared to venture into somewhere that is very remote and very wet place. So again, that was another mistake on my part. So here we are, eventually arrived at the summit, but you can see here now, it's very wet. We've got full waterproofs on. My wife in the background there looks very kind of done and fed up. This is at 2:30, okay? But the forecast had said that this patchy, drizzly rain and isolated showers and the clouds was actually going to fizzle out and disappear by the afternoon. But you can see there at 2:30, that's the afternoon. It's very much still there. It's lingering around, and the rain has just come in and set in. So to me, the forecast actually didn't pan out the way we had expected to. So you can see there at this point in the day, we're kind of fed up. I had actually kind of eaten quite a lot of food, and probably my third mistake was that I hadn't packed enough food for the day in anticipation of how challenging the terrain was going to be. So at this point, we made a decision to do something different and change our plans. So this is where the third aspect of this decision-making tool comes in, and this is the key places. And like I said previous, it's about anywhere the decision needs to be made about your journey, on your journey, and that can be in relation to the weather and the mountain conditions, how you feel or the people that you're with feel, and whether or not the landscape that you're in is needing you or forcing you to change your plans. And I would certainly say that for us, we had to change our plans based on the weather and the mountain conditions, how we were feeling, and then the landscape that we were in. So we were making changes to our plan at all three stages of this. So for us, our key place was the very summit. Once we got there, we decided to call it quits and not carry on to do these other 2 Munros because we were wet. It was getting, cold. The weather forecast wasn't accurate, and it meant that we would have had to carry on to the other 2 Munros, navigating in that poor visibility, which we weren't really prepared to do. So I made the decision to then try and get back down off the mountain. So I chose this route here. This red line marks the route that we walked back down the mountain. And I thought to myself, I think that seems like quite a logical route to get off. It seems appropriate for us, and we just want to get off the mountain quickly. But if you look closely at the summit of Ben Gibson, zoomed in here in this image of the map, in that poor visibility, we had to actually do a little bit of navigating here to make sure we went off the right way, because you could very easily start walking off and think you're going the right way, but maybe disappear off down a different slope and then get yourself either misplaced or navigationally embarrassed. So something that you have to bear in mind, and a useful tool to help you relocate yourself if you do get a little misplaced, is something called slope aspect or slope direction. Basically, what direction a slope faces. So to give you an example, say the green X marks the summit that you're standing on. Say you've done a journey somewhere and you're wanting to carry on in your journey along that ridge line, which is due kind of northwest roughly. So you started walking along that journey. Visibility is maybe a little bit poor and you can't really see. But you've got to a point where you've started heading downhill, but you've taken a slightly wrong direction or a bit of a detour down that red line, and you're not quite sure where you are, what slope you're on. So something that you can do is just pointing your compass down the fall line, down the slope that you're on, and then you can relay back that compass bearing to your map, and then you can look and see what direction that slope is facing, and then through a bit of process of elimination you can figure out what slope you're on. So here this red line is pointing more northeast, but you're wanting to travel northwest, so you know you've made a mistake. So you probably want to retrace your steps back to your last known place and then correct your journey. So that's a really useful tool, slope aspect or slope direction, which is very useful to use. So for us here, that's what we kind of had to do on the summit of Ben Gibson. We wanted to make sure that using slope aspect or slope direction and our compass, we could cancel out all other possible routes that would have led us the wrong direction and take us the right direction down the route that we wanted to go. And like with anything that you do in terms of navigating, like a good carpenter would do, is to measure twice and cut once. So don't just do it once and presume that it's right. Just double check that you've done it right, or if somebody else is with you, get them to do it as well. So you can both agree or disagree and double check. So something to think about why it's important to do this, that if you look back on this map, you can see there's some steep ground either side of the green line. And we wanted to avoid venturing off into that steep area. So looking at this aerial 3D view, you can see that steep ground, which can be really hazardous, and we wanted to avoid that at all costs. Considering the forecast and the weather that we were currently in was very wet, damp, and the rock was going to be very slippery, so we wanted to avoid those hazards. Something to bear in mind about hazards and steep ground and accidents happening in the mountains, that if you pay close attention to Ordnance Survey maps, that whenever index contours, the thicker ones, whenever they get squished together and closer, other contour lines have to be excluded because the cartographers actually can't physically draw them in. And whenever that starts to happen, the angle of the slope gets to about 30 degrees. And that's quite a steep angle. It's enough for someone to have a potential slip and a slide and a fall. And a lot of times when mountain rescue is called out, and slips and trips happen, it's probably somewhere on rocky, steep ground that's around 30 degrees. So pay a little bit more attention to your map. Again, even the planning of your journey at home, you could look at where your route takes you and does it cross any slopes that are maybe missing contours. And you can just make a little note of that to remind yourself that that's a potential place just to pay a bit more attention. It can be a little bit trickier on Harvey's maps if you use Harvey's maps to know where it gets steep ground, because they don't exclude contours, because the contour intervals on an OS map are 10 meters. On Harvey's maps, they're 15. But if you look very closely at a Harvey's map, you can see that there are certain places where the contour lines change grey. And they also have these little craggy outcrops that look like eyelashes. So those grey areas indicate, steeper ground or a change in slope that could be sort of around 30 degrees or more. So again, just paying a little bit more attention to the maps will give you a lot of information about what's happening under your feet. To get another visual understanding of steepness, if you've ever used this app, FatMap, great tool, highly recommend using it. You can put certain overlays onto the ground, which should give you an indication of steepness. So this is Ben Gibson and the route that I had chosen to take us down. And you can see either side where it's kind of that sort of orangey red color. It's kind of getting into that 25 to 45 degree angle. So really steep ground, which is going to pose a hazard to us, which we wanted to avoid. And again, you don't want to end up in ground that's going to lead to high risk and consequence of a slip becoming a fall. So anyway, back to our journey now that we had made, or I had made the decision to take us off down this safe route and venturing down through that ground. Again, another mistake that I made was not paying attention to the map and taking my own advice, because looking a little bit closer to the map, there are locations that are actually missing contours. So my idea was to follow a linear feature, which was this river down to safer ground. My mind was kind of set on, let's just get out of here, let's just get down. And I decided to take this route, but I didn't really pay too much detail to it. So this was a big mistake on my part as well, not taking my own advice. Because what eventually happened was we got into steep ground. There was a water hazard that had been raining, so that stream actually was quite steep in places. The ground was very wet and slippy and could have potentially led to something more serious. But we took our time, we were steady about it, and we got through it. But again, it might not have been the best route off the hill. What would have been a better course of action was to just go back the way we came, because there was the history there. We knew what we had done, and it was a route that we had trudged our way back up. Mind you, it might have been unpleasant because we knew what it was like, but we were guaranteed that it was a safer option rather than deciding to go a new, unknown way, which I had chosen, but that was my mistake to do. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it's good to learn from these lessons. So you can see here this red line marks the route that we had taken from the kind of the steeper area just in behind, out of the way there. This photograph's taken roughly just around there, and this is at 4 o'clock. We were on the summit at was it 2:30? So this is an hour and a half to get down through quite a short distance, but again, with those missing contours, it was quite steep, slow going. And you can also see the mist. That weather forecast hasn't cleared up to be a bright day by any means. So the forecast was the timing was a little bit wrong. Still trying to look happy, but still very wet, and just kind of happy to be getting off the hill. Eventually we made it back down, worse for wear. I had completely run out of food. Tara was pretty low on food. We just wanted to get home. Even by the end of it, the dog was done. She was very tired. So we got back down. This was at 7 o'clock. Still not quite back at the car. So that was roughly 9 to 10 hours for one Munro. We had intended and planned to do 3. We had totally underestimated, well, I had totally underestimated the terrain and, you know, how remote and featureless Ben Gibson is. So that definitely kind of learned a lesson. If I learned a lesson, is spend more time planning. Prior planning prevents poor performance. So make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, and spend that time, you know, putting the effort in at home. If you just notice in the photograph there that we're sitting on very long grass, and I know we're coming into that summertime now where certain things are going to become more prevalent. So a little game for you here. Without cheating and going on to Google, have a guess as to what scientific name this belongs to. What type of creature is it? The horrible, dreaded tick. And I hate these things with an absolute passion. They are the worst things in the world. So they start off minuscule and tiny and can grow up to something quite big. So next time you're eating a poppy seed bagel, think of those poppy seeds. That's how small, you know, the smallest tick can be, the little nymph. Or if you're eating a sesame seed bagel, that can be the size of some of the bigger ticks. They're a bit more noticeable. So you really have to pay attention to yourself whenever you're checking for ticks. If you do get one on you, I highly recommend buying a tick twister to remove them. These things are great. Pair of tweezers are useless. These tick twisters, they're definitely the best thing to get to remove ticks. And just something to bear in mind about, you know, with that kind of idea of this bullseye target shape or rash that kind of sometimes develop after a tick bite. It's not always like that. It can be some form of red rash that has maybe a slightly darker bit in the middle, or just a big red rash, or not even at all. But just something to bear in mind that, you know, if there's a rash appearing after a tick bite, straight to the doctor. You know, don't wait around for it to hopefully disappear. But the rashes come in many shapes, sizes, and forms and colors. It's not just always that bullseye that you can see in that middle photograph there. Don't worry, no mice were harmed in the making of this photograph. So what do we do about staying safe in the mountains? You know, what if things go that little bit wrong that we weren't expecting? So if you're out in the mountains and unfortunately you have that little bit of an accident, you have a wee kind of slip and a fall, who do you call? Well, you call 999, you ask for the police, and then mountain rescue. And they are very good at doing their job and being able to help them in getting the right information across to them to be able to give your location and what has happened to them for them to come out and get you. Sometimes you don't always have good phone signal, so it's maybe something worth bearing in mind and thinking about registering your phone through the text messaging service that they do. All you have to do is text the word register to 999 and follow the prompts thereafter from the text that you receive. And that allows you then to be able to send out an emergency text message to the emergency services. Because not always can you get phone signal to get a phone call out, but you might just have enough to get a text message through to the emergency services. So it's something that's worth doing. So if you've done that, you've called the emergency services, help is on its way. Chances are they could be a couple of hours before they get to your location. So you have to think, what have you got in your bag, or what are you carrying with you or with the group that's going to help sustain life and keep you that little bit warmer whilst you have to wait. And you can get a cheap and cheerful 5-6 quid bivvy bag, big bright orange plastic bags. They are lifesavers. It's better than having nothing, and it will help keep the wind and the rain off you. So buy one for 6 quid from Tyzo's, Ellis Brigham. Just stick it in the bottom of your bag and it lives in the bottom of your bag. If you want something a little bit more expensive, you could buy a blizzard bag, kind of like a 1 to 2 season sleeping bag. Still very lightweight, and they're, again, great pieces of kit. But these are only kind of one-person tools. You need something that's maybe a group use tool, so a group shelter. Again, great piece of kit to have. You can get it from 2-man to 8-man, so that they're great. And again, being a member of Mountaineering Scotland, you can get discounts on these things if you go to certain shops like Tyzo's or anywhere else. Also, again, something that's going to help you be able to give your location to someone is the use of phone apps that help give a grid reference or help you relocate yourself if you get a little bit misplaced. And watches do the same thing. And you also have these sat phones or GPSs and GPS location devices, which can help send out signals and other messaging as well. But you need to bear in mind if your information and location using map and compass is still a very important thing. But technology nowadays, it's great. We all use it. And sorry, folks, about that. My internet disappeared there. I'm back now, so sorry for the disruption. Okay, so yeah, sorry, as I was saying, yeah, giving a laid back procedure or a route card to someone to let them know where you're going, where you're parking, what time you plan to be back off the hill for as well. Because if you don't get back in the time that you had anticipated, then somebody can then call or contact the emergency services, or even just try and call you to see where you are, because you may just be enjoying the sunset view that you've got, or you've ended up down at the chip shop getting some food from a very long day and just completely forgotten to tell someone that you're back off the hill. So just having someone to hold you accountable will really help you in having that peace of mind, knowing that there's somebody there kind of to look after you whilst you're on the hill. So hopefully using the Be Adventure Aware checklist will really help you to then think about, how to put more effort and time into planning your day, and then to have a really good journey on the mountain, but being prepared to make decisions and change your plans if necessary at key places throughout the day. And hopefully my story that I've shared with you will highlight that even the best of us can always make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. So just to finish off with that, again, like I was saying, the key to having a really good day in the mountains is about making consistently good decisions. And that starts at home, planning the day, and even whilst you're out in the day, making those good decisions as well. So if all of this tonight has been completely new to you and you're completely unsure, but you want to know more, we are currently developing and have in the process a program called Sofa to Summit, which helps you learn the absolute basics to feel a little bit more confident and comfortable in heading out into the mountains for the first time, whether that is a low-level walk somewhere that you've never been to, or going up and bagging your first Corbett or your first Munro. And it's completely free, and you can register for it by following the link on our website. Time to stick the kettle on, and thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to fire them away, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. And again, I apologize for the internet disruption that I had momentarily at the end there. So a few questions coming in here. I'm just having a wee look through. So somebody's asked, what is a safe wind speed and what should you avoid? So the way I think about the wind speeds is up to 30 miles an hour. I feel like I can manage that, but I would prefer to have it on my back if I plan a journey or if I'm out somewhere. 40-mile-an-hour winds is more like you're being buffeted around. Your foot placements when you're walking don't actually really go where you'd intended them to. And then, gusts of 40, 50 upwards, you're being blown over almost onto your face, really. So I would say you could get away with up to 30, but gusting 40 or more, it's better to stay low and avoid those winds. He's asking about taking a dog on the hill. It's a tough one sometimes, taking dogs in the mountains, but we got very lucky at having a dog that is not inquisitive with sheep or deer at all. But if you have any doubt, take a lead, put them on the lead with you, and just do your best to keep them, close. Or if you're just completely unsure, it might be best just to leave them with someone who can look after them for the day. It is a tough one. A really good person to speak to about mountains and dogs would be Heather herself, because she was part of the search and rescue group with her dog Millie for 17 years. And she would be a fantastic person to get that advice about dogs in the mountains. So if you're wanting to know more, you can drop her an email and she'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you. What is our dog called? Our dog's called Brea, which is Irish for pure and spirited. He's asking about doing more remote Munros and recommend a navigation course, currently using my GPS. Yes, I always think it's a really good idea to get onto a navigation course, whether it's with us, Mountaineering Scotland, or some other provider of navigation courses, because map and compass don't require a battery. and they're really easy to use once you start using them more often, because your GPS and your phone will only last so long based on that battery. And if they get water damaged or lost or broken, then that's it, it's gone. So being able to use a compass and a map in the mountains is really important. So yeah, get onto a navigation course, and it's a good way to meet new people as well. So yeah, definitely recommend a navigation course. Somebody's asked about drinking water from streams in the mountains. Yeah, I would drink water from the streams in the mountains as long as it's above the last, inhabited place. I'd always take it from somewhere that's flowing, like still or stagnant water. I wouldn't touch, but somewhere that's flowing and clear. Yeah, I would drink from most streams in the high mountains. Someone's asked, what's my most used app for helping in the hills? It has to be ViewRanger. ViewRanger is a great tool because you can track and record the routes that you could do. You can also download a route from, I believe, from like Walk Highlands onto it, as well as a GPX file, and you can use it as a navigational aid. So yeah, it's a great app, and I know a lot of other freelance instructors and a lot of other very experienced mountaineers use it also. Somebody's asked about emergency locator beacons, or a PLB. These are great because they're kind of a one-hit wonder. You basically pull the top off and a big aerial comes out and sends an emergency signal, but you have to pre-register it with particular people and a message on it, and help will come your way. But that's it. It's only for absolute emergencies. Other devices like Garmin or something else you can get a subscription for to send and receive text messages through GPS, but you have to get a subscription, where these emergency locator beacons are solely for emergencies. You take the lid off and send a help signal. Maybe if you're going to somewhere really, really remote, it can just live in your bag, and then if something were to happen, yeah, you can use it. Ask about the NNAS qualifications, the Orienteering Qualifications. Yeah, they're a great place to start getting a base foundation for how to navigate, and that orienteers are fantastic navigators because they can orientate and set their maps very quickly. So if you've got those, yeah, I think they have bronze, silver, and then maybe a gold standard of qualification, or not sorry, qualification, but attendance course, and they will help in getting an understanding of how to interpret and read maps to navigate. So yeah, if you can get onto an orienteering course through NNAS, then yeah, definitely really good courses. Any tips on reducing strain on your knees going downhill? Walking poles. Walking poles are a great tool to add to your walking kit. They take about 30% strain off your knees after a long day, or even going uphill as well. And you can adjust the length of them. So if you're going uphill, you can make them a little bit longer for more pulling, and even sort of for balance downhill. So yeah, walking poles are a great addition to walking. Somebody's asked for a good Munro or a good hill to start off other than Ben Nevis. So depending on where you are, good ones could be like a good Corbett is Ben Vrackie. If you're over far east, you've got Mount Keene. If you're up here in the Cairngorms, you've got Nealavucal, which is a Corbett, or Cairngorm itself on a nice clear day. They're good hills that have got really good tracks that are very straightforward and require minimal navigation, but it's still always good to have a map and compass with you. So something like that, which is straightforward and easy, up and down, they're good hills to start off with. Ask what kind of are the musts for a first aid kit for a day walk. I would say like plasters, Compeed for blisters, and lots of triangular bandages as well, which most of the time, most things that were to happen in the hill are going to be blisters or lower leg injuries that you want to then isolate and support. But if you get a lower leg injury in the hill, you're most likely going to be calling mountain rescue. So if you can just help to sort of promote somebody's recovery and make them feel comfortable, being able to strap up a leg using triangular bandages to give it support, then they're really good. Other minor issues could just be blisters, so plasters and Compeed and things like that. Sun cream for a really hot sunny day. Somebody's asked about our trip that we had. Not confident coming down. Would you set up a tent? Be a good idea, bad idea? I think, if I wouldn't be carrying a tent for a day adventure. I'd be carrying a tent for, if I was going on an expedition somewhere and knew that I'd be staying out overnight somewhere. If I was somewhere up in the hill, I would always want to do my best to get back down. I would be reluctant to spend the night out in an emergency, because getting back down is going to be safer in the end, because you're not keeping yourself exposed to risk and the weather changing and getting cold if you're already damp. So if you know the way that you've come up, then try and go back that way down as well, getting yourself back to safer ground. It may take a little bit longer, take your time and go steady, but just try and get yourself back to safety rather than staying out and getting colder and potentially hypothermic. So yeah, try and get yourself off the hill if you can. It's always the good advice. Somebody's asked there, how much water do I carry on the hill? For me, I don't carry that much, maybe around a litre, depending on what I'm doing. I try and drink a lot of water the morning of, and then when I'm traveling to where I'm going, I try and drink some water in the car, and then I'll just have that water, about a litre in my bag, and then I would top that up at mountain streams that I come across. That's not always the case. For example, if you're on the Cullen Ridge in the Isle of Skye, there are very few places to get water, so you might need to actually carry that little bit of extra and be prepared to carry that extra weight, because 1 litre is a kilogram, so you have to sort of weigh that up. But I try and get a lot of water before going on the mountains. Somebody's asked here, how fit do you have to be for a navigation course in the Pentlands? Done hills like Dumyat and Connick and similar. Generally on a navigation course, you don't walk that far because there's a lot of stopping and starting and chatting and practicing actually doing the navigational element. It's not like a big day where you go up a Munro 10 times. It's more focused on looking at the skills and putting them into practice on a short journey in a mountain environment. So we wouldn't really be marching people up a hill. It's just enjoying the day out and doing some skills training. So if you've done things like Dumyat and Connick, get yourself onto a course, certainly. Be more than fit to do it. Folks, I think we'll leave it there. And I would just like to say thank you very much again for joining us this evening, and I hope it's been informative. And if you are interested in any other bits of information, please do feel free to email myself or Heather or Mountaineering Scotland in general, and we will be more than happy to answer any questions. And that's what we're here for, to help you to learn new skills and to keep yourselves safe in the mountains. So again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your night. Bye.